Mountain Boy is very different than the stories we've heard so far. We're at a much earlier stage in our development. We're purely an exploration company, which puts us very much in that high risk, high reward kind of category. Now, it's Friday afternoon. They're already setting up the bar, so I'm going to just have a very brief presentation. I'm going to get right to the point. As I said, exploration, high risk, high reward. In my 40 years experience in the mining industry, this is the most compelling exploration story that I've ever come across. I'm very, very excited about what we've got here. And my mission, and the entire team at Mountain Boy are entirely behind me on this, we're determined to make a discovery and generate a return for shareholders 10-fold or even 50-fold from our current level, given we are so undervalued and the potential scale of a discovery is so large that we have that sort of upsized potential. And from where we are at the current market value, our downside risk is limited. So what more do you need to say? But given that the bar is not quite open yet, I'm going to provide a little bit of explanation as to these rather bold statements that I've been making here. So look, we're focused on Golden Triangle. Everybody here, of course, is familiar with the Golden Triangle and recognizes that it's one of the most richly mineralized areas on the planet. But you may not be aware of what's happening at the current moment and how quickly things are evolving in the Golden Triangle. Over the last 3 years, the major mining companies have invested $5 billion in the Golden Triangle. And the pending amalgamation between Newmont and Newcrest has a very significant Golden Triangle component. Newcrest is already producing from 2 mines in the triangle. When they finish the expansion of one of those mines, Newcrest will be producing 600,000 ounces of gold a year in the Golden Triangle. Newmont also has 2 development stage projects in the triangle. So if that Newmont-Newcrest merger goes ahead and Newmont carries on and develops those 2 projects, there's the potential for Newmont to be producing 1 million ounces a year from the Golden Triangle. That would exceed Newmont's production from Nevada. So just to put this region in a perspective. Now, the majors that are not already involved in the Golden Triangle are clamoring for a way to get a stake in this region that is emerging very, very quickly. And so our mission is to take one of our 7 projects or more and advance them to the stage where we can have a major company takeover. And a really good analogy for our mission is GT Gold. Newmont took over GT Gold in 2021 and a transaction valued at more than $400 million. Our flagship project is near the GT Gold project. It's geologically very similar, and I believe that our project has potential to be bigger and better than the GT Gold transaction. Now, if we just match GT Gold's transaction value, that implies a 30-fold increase from the current value of Mountain Boy. So that's our mission. We're determined to make it happen. Now, as I said, we have 7 projects in the triangle, and especially on a Friday afternoon, I'm not going to try to get through 7 projects, and I'm only going to briefly touch on one of the projects. But just to show what it's like, we've accumulated 680 square kilometers over 7 projects in the Golden Triangle. And this claim map gives an indication of the claim situation in that region. Every square meter of worthwhile geology in that region is held by somebody. So it took a lot of time and effort to accumulate these 7 projects and that huge property position, which ranks among the largest property holdings in this district. So touching briefly on our capital structure, minuscule market value, price is a little bit higher today than when this was put out a few days ago, but still $10 or $11 million market value, tiny fraction of the value given the number of projects and the extent of the property holdings that we have in this region. Management very closely aligned with all of the other shareholders, 34% insider ownership position. And I have to say that Ross Beatty is a 10% shareholder in the company, so we're in good company here. We've got a couple $1 million of working capital, enough to fund us through the current phase of work on the project and get us well into the next phase of work. Board of directors, advisors, management team, we've got an enormous amount of exploration and expertise in this group of people. My own background, just very briefly, geology degree, I went straight into the MBA program at UBC. I worked for several years for one of the majors, and then I got involved in managing junior exploration companies. And then I started an investment newsletter, and for 15 years I wrote an investment newsletter, entirely independent, subscriber supported. And then I was recruited by one of the Texas oil families to set up an office in Vancouver and deploy some of their money into the mining industry. 4 years back, I got back to what I love doing, which is the treasure hunt, and a very deliberate focus on the Golden Triangle, because in all the years in the industry, I haven't seen anything on the planet that has such a rich concentration of metal value. But look, all that expertise and experience and gray hair on our team there, these are the people that are really going to make it happen. These are an extraordinary group of young geologists. They're committed, they're determined, they're enthusiastic, and they are very hungry to make a discovery. So these are the people that I really want to focus on as being key to the future success of the company. So a lot of enthusiasm and energy, and guided by some very experienced veterans of the mining industry. It makes for a very powerful team. ESG, everybody talks about it. Look, to us, ESG just means doing the right thing. It's our nature. We don't need policy manuals. And as a result of that, we've got excellent relations with the First Nations, with the local communities, with all levels of government. When we need permits, we get permits on a timely basis. So, Telegraph project, I can't imagine a better neighborhood to go looking for a porphyry deposit. Now, unfortunately, the laser pointer's not working here, but you can see on here the Galore Creek deposit, a 50-50 joint venture between Teck and Newmont. We're adjacent to Shaft Creek, which is a Teck project. Red Chris is being operated at the moment by Newcrest, and they're expanding to 300,000 ounces a year. And then, of course, the Saddle deposit, which was bought by Newmont for a $400 million valuation. A lot of work done all through the triangle and this area in particular. And, you know, the 2/3 of this slide represents our current property holdings. You can see on there a patchwork of junior companies, but also the majors heavily involved in this region. Teck was very active here. Homestake, before it was taken over by Barrick, was also very active in this region. 50 companies have worked on the property that we now control as our Telegraph Creek project. We've assembled all of that information, and we're using that as a basis for moving the project forward. before we consolidated this ground, it was seen as 35 separate geological occurrences. That's not true at all. It's one massive geological system. We see that now. We've pulled together all these bits and pieces of geological information. We can see how it all interrelates. We can see underlying this is a huge geological system. Now, just to give a bit of a sense of the scale of our project and of this geological system, this is the Saddle and Saddle North deposits on the same scale as our project. And if you look on the left side, there is the Dock Trend. To the north is the Strata-Gossan Trend. And on the right side of the picture is the Yeti Trend. Each one of those trends or target areas is comparable in scale to the Saddle deposit. In other words, we've got 3 shots at replicating Saddle. And here's the billion-ton Galore deposit, again shown on the same scale as our Telegraph project. So you can see that we've got enormous scale in this project, huge scope for making a big discovery. Now, a couple of really interesting things on here. There's that massive Gossan that you see in the photograph. We're seeing Gossans over tens of square kilometers on this property. Gossans are the weathered area on surface where there's a metal-bearing geological system. It's a good first indicator that you're in the right environment. But what's even more interesting, and unfortunately I can't point to it, but if you look at that picture, you can see there's effectively a line across at the top. Anybody that knows about the Golden Triangle has probably heard about the red line. That's an unconformity between the Stuhini rocks and the Hazelton rocks. And that unconformity is closely related to most of the major deposits in the Golden Triangle. That line that you see near the top of the photograph is the red line. That's the unconformity. So we are absolutely in the right neighborhood for making a major discovery. We've patched together massive amount of information. We've tied together different data sets from different operators and reinterpreted the geophysics and the geochemistry, and we put all the bits of geology together. And this is just one example of the work that we've done in compiling all this earlier information. This slide is really the key to understanding the potential of what we have here. The top left corner there shows 2 drill holes that were done in 2014. Those 3 colored lines across the top represent IP, or induced polarization, geophysical lines that were done in 2012 by a previous operator. You can see in the area where the holes are, there's a subtle chargeability anomaly. That aligned with a geochemical anomaly from work that was done in the early 1970s. So based on the alignment of that geophysical and geochemical signature, they drilled those 2 holes. Our interpretation now is that those holes are on the periphery of a porphyry system. So we did a much more extensive IP survey this past season, and that shows in the center of the photograph there. If there's any geologists in the crowd, and I know there's a few geologists here, you'll recognize the classic porphyry signature in that geophysics, the chargeability halo around the low. That aligns exactly with an area that we're seeing 1% copper values over a big area, copper values up to 18% copper on surface. That exactly aligns with that geophysical anomaly. So you can understand my excitement about this project. We've got the high grades of copper on surface. We've got a geophysical signature, classic for a porphyry deposit. We're in the middle of a well-established trend or district of porphyries. It's like I said at the beginning, one of the most compelling exploration targets that I've ever come across. Now, when they drilled those 2 holes, and there's some of the core from it, I'm not, on a Friday afternoon, not going to talk a lot about drill core and assays and all the rest of it. Just suffice to say, the grades were subeconomic, but they confirmed the presence of a porphyry. In other words, those holes are geologically interesting. And holes that are geologically interesting for a junior that needs to raise money in the public markets were the death knell for this project. Those holes in 2014 were the last serious work that was done on the project until we consolidated the project in 2021. So, again, just to summarize here, a massive area. This is 14 kilometers. The grid on this thing is 2 kilometers. So all those claim lines you're seeing are actually internal claim boundaries. This is all ours. Most of it is either 100% owned or optioned to 100%. One piece of it has an option to 60%. The grid is 2 kilometers. We're looking at a mineralized system that is 14 kilometers north-south, 12 kilometers east to west. It's huge. With all of these red and purple triangles are better than 1% copper. In addition, we're seeing up to 60 grams of gold. And one of the samples that we reported just recently from last season, 1,500 grams of silver in addition to the copper and the gold values. It's huge. It's extremely well mineralized, and just waiting for a drill. We've got a drill permit in place, and now it's bring on the truth machine. So we anticipate drilling to get started in August. We plan about a month in the field before we start. We're going to finish compiling results. We don't have all our results in yet from last season, so we've got more results to come in. We'll integrate all of those results, and after we do all of that, we'll have about a month on the ground to fine-tune drill targets and get started by about August. I can't promise we're going to hit the bullseye on the first hole, but there's no doubt there's something of real significance down there, and it's just waiting to be found. So we have an enormous amount of information, swings the odds in our favor, and like I said, we're just can't wait to get the truth machine on this thing and get going on it.